Thanks for watching The Personal History of Games. I'm your host, Eric Kanius. Back in September of 2019, I was lucky enough to record a few episodes of the show in person during PAX West. Today's guest is none other than Kate Welch. She's worked at such places as ArenaNet, Amazon Game Studios, and Wizards of the Coast, but now you can find her designing for the brand new studio Secret Door. A spirited energy that's hard to find, Kate was generous enough to share some of her busy time at PAX with us. The game we're playing this episode is Sam & Max Hit the Road, the classic point-and-click adventure from LucasArts. Here's that conversation.
Oh my god, this title screen!
Do you want me to play or do you want to play?
No, you play.
Okay. Do I need the keyboard?
I don't think so.
Okay. I got this far just to make sure it works, and I didn't know what was happening.
And already you're telling me you just want to be friends?
Oh no.
Oh my god.
You never gave me a chance, and for that, you'll fry like a pork
This is-
sausage.
Yep.
Not where I thought this
Toxic
was going.
masculinity.
Like you, it's just that, well, you're too nice a guy, I guess. I think I'd rather go out with someone more a bit unpredictable.
Wow. I love how chill she is.
Yep.
Oh, yes!
Hello. This doesn't look like the Lincoln Tunnel, Sam.
The voice
Looks to me
actors.
Like a
Wow.
volatile hostage situation, Max.
They got such
Does
good
this mean
ones.
we get to kick some puffy white mad scientist butt? Can't think of a reason not to.
You'll be of no use, freelance police. With the flip of a lever, my ungrateful lunch date will be reduced to a half cup of disoriented atomic matter.
So this game,
I knew he wasn't a real doctor.
Shall I confront, subdue, and pummel the suspected perpetrator, Sam?
I don't want to interrupt.
Sick him up, little buddy.
Yes!
Ow!
What is wrong with
Hey,
Oh, he's
nice
watching.
Yeah,
I
no,
thought
he's
his-
he's
I thought
watching the
his finger-
pummeling. Yeah, see all the drips coming off?
Jeez.
Yeah!
Hey, Sam, can I keep his head for a souvenir? Why do you suppose it's ticking?
What if he was a real guy?
He's
That's no
just
head,
don't have to worry about it.
One damn deadly
Jeepers.
time bomb.
He's a time bomb.
Leave this criminal cesspool pronto. Good idea, Sam.
I'm sorry, I'm just gonna watch this.
That's
It's been
fine.
so long since I played it.
Yeah, that's the whole...
Oh, the credits are running.
Now, if you don't mind me clawing at the dash and shrieking like a cheerleader. Sam, is pronto a real word?
Goodbye, Sam and Max. I'll never forget all you've done here today.
I knew they were going to leave her tied up.
Of course they are. They did their jobs. He made an effort to untie her.
Barely.
This was the first time I ever realized that a video game could make me laugh in my entire life. Sam & Max Hit the Road, and this is why I picked it for this. This is an association with the Illuminati local number 421. What?
I guess the Illuminati is unionized.
It is so unique to see, and maybe this is because I'm not sure. Do you know what year this was released?
I do not.
Okay.
I'll look it up.
I played it it must have been 97. Because it came in this big LucasArts box set. And so for those of you, we were just talking about our respective ages. I'm 34. When I was a kid, video games came in these gigantic boxes, the size of a cereal box, right? Even if it was just one disc.
Yes.
It was nuts. It was too much. And I even distinctly remember the transition where they were like, this is too much cardboard for a single CD-ROM. Why don't we make these boxes smaller? And everybody was like, whoa, these boxes are so small. But when I was a kid, this LucasArts collection box, I think they did several of them, but Sam & Max Hit the Road was in it, as was David. What, did you look it up?
Yeah.
What year?
The initial MS-DOS release was 93. And
Okay.
It came out on Mac in 95.
Okay.
It wasn't on Windows till 2002.
Okay. Well, I definitely played it before 2002, so I must have played the DOS release because 2002 was the year I graduated college, and this was 6th, 7th grade that I was playing this game. And yeah, it was the first time I realized video games could be goofy and silly, and that some studio like LucasArts, which to me as a Star Wars fan, I was like, whoa, Lucasfilm, LucasArts, all of this is a really big deal to me. They're signing off on goofy shit like this. This is very special, and I believe both Tim Schafer and Ron Gilbert were involved in Sam & Max. Definitely Tim Schafer.
Yeah. I can see that.
God, this game is so good.
Well, that was a pleasantly understated credit.
Come on!
Enjoy the
Yeah.
cheesy retro ambiance. What the hell are you talking about, Max? Sam, either termites are burrowing through my skull, or one of us is ticking. Oops. Oh,
It's,
yeah.
He's still got the bomb.
Max, where should I put this so it doesn't hurt anyone we know or care about? Out the window, Sam. There's nothing but strangers out there.
Yes!
it's unrelenting, and it's just every piece of dialogue is funny.
Every
I hope
piece
there
of
was nobody
dialogue.
on that bus. We know at least.
It is so good. Yes, get the phone. Who's gonna get it? Get him, Sam. Get him, Max. Throws Max out the window.
Hello? Yes? Yes?
Did you know this was also a comic book?
No. Was it a comic before this game?
I believe so, yeah. I believe this was an adaptation of it. And I think they toned it down, especially Max. Max is such a murderous little shit. I mean, he's a murderous little shit in this game for sure. Oh yeah, okay, so
Right.
please open this inventory. This inventory, God, I should get this tattooed on my body. Like these are all the actions you can take,
Yes.
right? Or you can sick Max on something. That's an actual action you can take. And so all of this stuff is, this is like look, take, talk, use, put into your inventory, or sick Max on it.
Where'd the
And
walking one go? Okay, just click.
yeah, everything is walking. Oh, and some of these puzzles, dude, like this was pre-internet. So it was a thing where like if you got stuck on a puzzle in 1996, that was your life. You're stuck on that puzzle forever now.
It's Max.
Oh, I don't want to look at Max.
Yeah, what do you do? Here's another great question. What do you even do? Right, you can turn the TV on. You can maybe go throw some axes. There's a rat that runs around. I don't even know. I probably spent a full hour just poking around this office to see what toys I could play with.
He threw them all at once.
Yeah, he throws them all at once. It's ridiculous.
This is no time for
That's all. Like at least each.
There's a message on your answering machine.
This is no time for chit
Some
chat.
time for chit
Oh,
chat.
I guess you don't want to listen to that answering machine.
Guess not.
So one of the best parts about these games is that they are infamously completely impossible. There are so many puzzles that are there's no logical reason for that to be the solution to the puzzle, and that was game design in the 90s. That was what you did, was just frustrate people as much as you could until they figured it out and they felt really good about it.
The
There wasn't-
designer knew what the puzzle was.
The designer knew. The designer knew. I blame Tim Schafer, even if like he was only marginally involved with this. I'm sure it was Tim Schafer's fault. But the idea that you could just get stuck for weeks and weeks on a puzzle, like there were no game facts. There wasn't an IGN wiki. There was no walkthrough.
Jimmy,
What the hell happened?
Whoa.
Piece of
Oh,
this.
okay.
Uh-oh. You got a cutscene here.
But very true to life. There's one for your old man.
Yeah.
I really respect Flint's business acumen. Please, Sam, don't use the word acumen again.
That's fair. Acumen is a terrible word.
Why? It's so descriptive. It makes you sound fancy.
It does make you sound fancy. Look at the incredible graphics on that
We don't go
ceiling
upstairs.
fan. They don't go upstairs, all
Since
right?
The accident.
Not since the accident. Now, you may ask, is there a reason for them to have put stairs in this map? No, there's not. It's just for the
You're
joke.
such an adorable urchin, Max.
Such an adorable urchin.
So this game, you're playing it when you're 7 and 8.
Yeah, well, so I was 7 or 8. No.
Or
Oh, bless you. No, I think I was like 11 or 12. So I was born in 84, and I think I remember playing this in 96 or 97. So I was a teen, preteen, the delicate age between 7th and 8th grade. Yeah, get in there. What are you going to do, Sam? You just found a bunch of money.
Never leave home without it.
there we go.
Yeah, we may need it to bribe slippery government
And now
officials.
you have officially have a cash item.
Good, good.
It's always going to come in useful. Unless it doesn't, which it never does. Like there's so much stuff you'd be like, I'd love to use cash on this, but I just can't. So yeah, I was a kid, and this was on my, God, I'll never forget, my Compact Presario was my computer. And this was all, so the box set that this came in was Sam & Max Hit the Road, Day of the Tentacle, which I have an equal amount of fondness for. One of the Rebel Assault games, I want to say. One of the Jedi Knight games. I'll get corrected on this, I'm sure. But then the other thing in there, I believe, was a copy of Star Wars X-Wing, which was a flight sim. And it was all of those games together formulated so much of my childhood because we just didn't buy other games. We'd rent them. We'd rent them at Blockbuster or whatever, and we'd play them, and then we'd give them back. But most games I just played over and over and over and over and over again. And so Sam and Max I eventually beat through sheer hard-headedness, and the same with Day of the Tentacle. But those LucasArts games were such
unhindered contact with the outside world.
such a
realize we don't pay the bills.
it was the first time I realized that something that I took as seriously as video games could be entertainment, like just sheer entertainment, and brilliantly written, and that people would allow you to do that. And I also, and this is going to be a contrast with the levity of this game, but when I was a kid, this game in particular was this source of levity, and I like. It's
a black light that Max uses to illuminate his rare 60s poster.
Sorry.
It's really hard to have a serious conversation. I'm going to try. But no, please keep going. But I was abused by my mom when I was a kid, and I've talked about this online before, but I had a really emotionally abusive relationship with my mom. And so video games and Star Wars role-playing were where I escaped it. And this was the first time where I was like, I can just dive into this comedy universe where everything is funny and nobody takes anything too seriously, and the music is lighthearted, and the puzzles, you just struggle over them because it gives you something else to think about. And this I picked this.
I can't use these things together.
Well, you're not thinking out of the box, Sam. If you want to use Max on that dartboard, I think there's a lot of options. This game was very iconic for me in my escape and my pursuit after that of being a game developer and trying to do the improv comedy stuff that I do on Twitch now. The C-Team, the acting C-Team stuff, and comedy panels and things like that. This was the first time
Hey there, little fella.
I realized those things went together.
Right.
And that was huge for me.
Feel like that all the time.
The cat.
You must be the freelance police.
What kind of voice is that?
Go blabbing it to everybody. I think he's kind of cute, Sam. Can I make a tennis racket out of him? Maybe later, Max. Right now, we've got a message from the commissioner to collect.
I can see exactly what you're talking about. It's just so much of it, and it's constant in what it's doing, and that is hard to find in a game.
Every scene.
I saw your orders for safekeeping. But now I can't seem to hold them back up.
What? And
I
Sam, so his idle animation is to play with the blood.
Ready for
don't
action.
want to look at my.
It's so good. I'm sorry. This is terrible podcast material.
I just love to turn this guy inside
Yes,
out.
do it, Max.
Oh, that gives me an idea.
Yes.
figured.
Nice. Hey, good job.
Thank you.
You solved the puzzle.
I did it.
Bizarre.
So you have this call to adventure that happens, and there's no other. It's so meta, the stupid commentary on we don't have anything better to do, and this is the first video game that made me truly laugh. I laugh a lot. I just love to laugh. But I don't laugh when I'm alone. I have this weird, almost sociopathic tendency. I don't.
Ooh, scary. Max, the smart-ass kid doesn't think we're scary.
Teach him.
What do you think about that? That's telling him, little buddy.
Yes. Get him, Max.
I think that punk learned a valuable lesson, Sam. Me too, Max.
So stupid.
I didn't realize that the lower lip could stretch completely.
And it's
amazing.
it's got that same kind of Pinky in the Brain humor of I don't know. Anyway, so this was the first game I realized I was laughing by myself in the basement of my house playing this game and laughing. And the only other time that has ever happened to me was Psychonauts, which has an extremely similar pedigree. I blame Tim Schafer for all of the joy that I had in my life as a child. But Psychonauts was the other game that I was just oh my God, I didn't know games could be this funny. And this is something that I'm so grateful to Ron Gilbert with Monkey Island and Tim Schafer with this and Day of the Tentacle and everything he's done with Double Fine. Oh, these characters.
Now we get in the bus and look for them, you idiot.
I knew that.
And this Hall of Oddities, I spent so much time at this carnival.
Seems like a ripe place for a lot of things to do.
There's a lot of shenanigans.
I don't know, but if it weren't for the carefree innocence of this carnival, I'd be breaking his kneecaps. Little imp, Max.
Who wrote these lines? Come on.
They're out of this world.
They're so good.
All right.
Yeah, we're gonna have to negotiate with him.
What?
Clearly. Yeah.
I can't do anything then.
It
All right,
might be time to have a conversation, in my opinion.
Get the John.
Yeah, so imagine this, like, baby Kate in her basement, no lights on, just, like, clicking everything.
These are all inscrutable.
Exactly. Everything's inscrutable. You click this thing onto that thing and hope for the best. Hope for something. That was the entire gameplay model.
There's a sense of adventure with that. That's where they're an adventure game where you're just figuring stuff out. Like
exactly.
It's this world with its own rules and its own thought process.
Yes.
I feel like it's a pretty good way of getting into someone's head of the people that made this.
Right?
Just like the A to B to C on how you get from thing to thing.
Yeah.
Let us in, Oleo breath. Nope.
And there's so many references, like, I didn't get this when I was a kid. Oleo breath. And everyone's got a ridiculous accent. You got to try to use Max on him.
Oh, yes.
That was my solution for everything.
Classic. Yes, I don't need to see him.
See what Max will do to this guy.
I'd better not.
Oh.
Max is highly flammable, not downright explosive.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah,
Sure.
Max is definitely bathing himself in gasoline most of the time. So yeah, so what do? You don't know.
Oh, the note.
You got to click something else.
Orders from the commissioner telling us to hightail.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
The
Maybe give
keyword I
that
got
to
from
the
that was
fire breather.
carnival, so that's why I came down here.
Check
Nice.
this out, Jack. We're the freelance police. Here's our authorization to be here.
There was also there was a cartoon they made after, and I remember the theme song of it perfectly. Like, I was such a big Sam and Max fan. Sam and Max, freelance please.
I guess you can
I did not know it had such a rich lore and like multimedia thing going on here.
Listen, welcome to Sam and Maxdom. I'm your queen.
cryptic.
I'd be peeing my pants if I wore any.
Yeah, why is Sam is a dog dressed in a full suit. Max is just nude. So good.
Over there.
Man or chicken dumpling?
Authorities without consulting me.
Well, I tried talking to you, but you were off wallowing in your own self-pity.
Yeah, but
It's them.
It's just
It's hard to talk about anything else.
just very good.
It's just so much. There's just a lot happening.
Welcome to our carnival.
what's left of it?
Cells.
All right, you had mentioned in your email number munchers and Oregon Trail.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I love number munchers. I haven't thought about it in so long. Number munchers is so good.
You're 5 years younger than me. I'm surprised they kept having number munchers in schools that long.
Yeah, we had like very old Macs around, and then we had number munchers. And
Yeah.
in Canada, we had Yukon Trail,
Oh,
not Oregon Trail.
Attraction was a block of
So we weren't going to Oregon. We were going to the Yukon to get gold.
was it the same game
I
though?
don't think so.
Oh my
Because
God.
at the end of Oregon Trail, are you panning for gold?
No.
Okay, because I thought so. The end of Yukon Trail was like you're making it across like a very similar progress, but at the end you get to pan for gold.
Oh
And
my
you pick your
God.
spot. You get to pick between like 3 different areas, and then when you go to the area, you pick a spot, and then you like it just runs, and you get some random amount of gold.
That is amazing.
And so we're all competing to try and get the most gold.
He's kidnapped our second
Yeah.
attraction.
So Oregon Trail was a thing where like you were the point of it was the journey,
Yes.
right? So you would stop in different port towns or not, restock your supplies or not. You would get your wagon axles would get broken. You'd have to
Yes.
hunt for
Your missing
bears or whatever, and that was the whole point. And then at the very end, you would have a incredibly treacherous river you either had to ford or float the wagons, and that has become this meme for I think people who grew up in the United States and grew up in the 90s. It's like, you gonna ford the river, you gonna float the wagons, or you gonna cross? It was so good. But they Number Munchers and Oregon Trail and Carmen Sandiego were these games that were educational games, edutainment games, right?
Yes.
And they were couched in these ways that made it so that we were able to play video games when we were kids in schools. And what a brilliant sell that is. Even like the 90s wasn't that, it hadn't been that long since video games had been invented. And so in the 90s, we were playing these games that were just thinly couched in education.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, like, this is what I want to do for a living, because this is surreptitiously getting video games into schools, which I was a really good student, but I was like, school sucks. School's stupid. And so how do I get more video games into schools? As an adult and understanding the industry, I now realize there's zero budget for edutainment games, right? But that was the dream. I wanted to make. This was my stupid, like, pre-industry game pitch. I really wanted to make an MMO. Why? I don't know. But I wanted to make an MMO that was about, like, people discovering America. And at the time, my narrative for that was, like, Christopher Columbus and the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, those kinds of things. And now as an adult, I know that narrative is quite a bit more complicated and possibly messed up. But when I was a kid, I was like, well, if I wanted to learn history, the way I keep that in my head is by interacting with history rather than just reading it in a dry-ass textbook, which was never appealing to me. So, but if you interact with history, I still remember the screens in Carmen Sandiego. I remember the UI. I remember learning about places and where they were on the map and everything else. And I don't know if those were the goals of Carmen Sandiego or not, but yeah, this Sam & Max is not an edutainment game. I don't think I learned anything except that there is something called the biggest ball of twine, which you find out later. That is a real place. But yeah, those games when I was a kid, I still wish to some degree that I had been able to work on a really good number muncher. Like something where you're like, you're still doing maths. Your teachers are fine with you doing it, but secretly you're playing a video game to just like get my agenda into a place where kids could have more fun. School is just so dismal. I don't know if that's true these days. I know with iPads and all
I feel like I did some teaching, or like I volunteered to do some teaching about filmmaking at a high school, and just like people on their phones and talking about Supernatural, and I don't know, it's pretty dark.
People on their phones? Wait, talking about Supernatural?
Yeah.
The show?
Yes.
In the school?
Yes.
In class?
Not like they broke up into groups. I keep hitting this phone.
Yeah, you can dedefinitely hit Max. He doesn't care.
They had to make short films for their class, and I was there helping, and just one group was way into Supernatural. I was like, oh, why? Hey, folks, if you're enjoying this podcast, Beamed Media has another new podcast I think you'll love. It's called Do We Like, and I co-host it along with my partner, Robin. Robin, do you want to explain the show?
Thanks, Eric. Hi, I'm Robin, co-host of Do We Like, a podcast where Eric and I debate common people, places, and things to decide if we like them or need to leave them. Join us each week as we debate controversial topics like pickles, underwear, bubble tea, and Queen Elizabeth I. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, or come find us at dowelike.com.
Hey, you want something, dude?
Hey.
Is it in your inventory?
No.
Oh, well, now you gotta do this again.
It popped at the bottom. Damn it.
You just hit those rats. Maybe you'll win something else. I was so bad at... So now, when I watch you play this, I'm like, this is easy. But it was so hard when I was a kid.
You don't have your motor skills.
Yeah,
get
plus,
too excited.
What is the score up front?
I think
15
hit versus miss, or hit 2 total.
I see.
God damn it.
So you're gonna hit 20 to win, but you can miss as many as you want, or hit max as many times as you want. That's totally fine. I think you won. You better win something extra for this. This is a lot of effort.
I didn't mean to do this.
Yay!
All right, winner.
All right. I can't remember what you win. I'm very excited to see what it is.
Well, I see it's down there, but
oh, it's out of prizes.
There's
Yes, that's
a
right.
prize down there, but I can't.
You gotta don't touch the top
that's
one.
use. This is take. Got it.
Ah. Excellent.
What is
Do
that?
you get a flashlight?
Yes.
Nice, dude.
That will come in handy later.
Can you imagine? Like, there are so many puzzles. I don't know if the flashlight is one of the items, but certainly in this game, you will get an item and you'll hold on to it for 30 hours until it becomes useful. And until that time, you will use that item on every single puzzle, trying desperately to solve it, and it will not work.
She's my best customer. She used
Yes, I played a couple of these and like the new Monkey Island and that sort of thing because adventure games weren't really my bag.
What did you
back
play when
then.
you were a kid?
What the hell did I play? Oh, that's a lie. We had a computer. I don't know where the computer came from, and then in the computer was Police Quest, which is a variation of
Like King's Quest or
yes,
Space Quest?
It's the same company.
Oh, yeah.
They made Police Quest with the help of like the LA Police Commissioner. I read a story like a couple of years ago that came out about it. But yeah, so it's similar, but you're a cop.
That is awesome.
And so I played that, but I only ever played it with a walkthrough. I would just follow the walkthrough and play the game. And for some reason, that was enjoyable to me.
Sure, why not? That's totally
I
enjoyable.
wanted to see the story.
You wanted to see the story. Yeah, it's essentially like assisted story mode for video games these days, right? You wanted to see the story, you wanted to solve the puzzles, you wanted to beat it. Like, who cares? Get a walkthrough.
Yeah.
I'm sure that at some point I was able to print out walkthroughs for this game, but it was not accessible for me at the time. I think like I couldn't play this game and be online at the same time because it tied up the phone line. So you'd have to like pull them up. This is, some of you remember this, I'm sure, but this is for the younger folks among us. Yeah, you had to print that stuff out and just hope it was right.
Yeah.
And some of these old games also had like helplines you could call.
Yes.
Do you remember this?
Yes.
I don't think I ever stooped to that level, but man, I hope you get to talk to somebody who did. Because
Previous guest Sarah might have done it a whole bunch.
Really?
Yes.
For Full Throttle?
I believe so.
Oh, that's amazing. She would. It's because she empowers herself. She takes
She
it.
does,
She
yes.
takes what's given. She takes it. She says, I do need this. But you got to go on the Cone of Tragedy.
I did. I don't know how, but I
Me
did.
too. It's as though an integral part of my essence has been ripped from my being.
So the Cone of Tragedy may have actually stolen something out of your inventory. Is that true?
No.
Yes.
No. So what is,
Yes, I can't believe I remember this.
that was a nice pull. What happened?
Yeah.
Excuse us. We need some help, and although you seem dangerously
No, where's their stuff?
brain-wise, we've come to you for advice.
You seem dangerously unequipped brain-wise. Incredible.
Where'd my cool junk go?
It must have fallen out of your coat while you were on the ride.
Yeah, you
Here's
ding
a
dong.
claim ticket. Take it to the Lost and Found.
Take it to Lost and Found. I love that.
Did I not have to ride that? I wonder.
No, you didn't have to ride that, but now you get to go to Lost and Found.
Yeah. More adventure. Hey, found it. Wait.
How did this happen that you were just on that ride and all of your stuff is already in Lost and Found? It's the magic of video games.
Yeah. These carnival workers are very efficient in the one thing that is Lost and Found.
You don't have the he says, I don't think I have the psychotic strength to ring the bell, but don't worry. Yes, you're a genius. Yes.
Can you ring that bell?
Sure.
Come on, Max. What you got? Yeah.
You're my hero, little buddy.
It won a prize? No? All right.
No, it's just for the sheer joy of this tiny bunny, Max, having the psychotic strength that you don't.
Crepes on toast.
Nothing personal. You're the single ugliest thing we've ever seen.
Well, there was that computer game developers conference.
Yes! Dude, they used to be
Perfect.
called computer games.
Must have been
Right, yes.
There are still some people that I know, older folks, who still call them computer games.
They call it the clicker and
The clicker! Haven't heard that one in a while.
what is happening in there?
Okay, so when you were a kid, you said that there was an adventure game that you played?
Yeah, I played Police Quest.
Police Quest, yes,
and
yes,
that
yes.
was the one.
That's right. I played, actually, the one that predates this for me is King's Quest 6, Air Today, Gone Tomorrow. I played that game, I don't know how many times. I don't know if I ever beat it, because I was just a dumb kid, but I played it over and over and over again.
Got my stuff
It was
back.
so good. Alexander pulls out his magic map. It was so awesome. I think it was my first introduction to fantasy, like high fantasy. I must have been 5th grade, 6th grade. I'm sure I read books that had high fantasy elements, but King's Quest was the first time I was ever really immersed myself into a fantasy universe.
Speaking of which, I don't think I introduced the podcast, did I?
Oh, no, we just dove right into it. Welcome to this podcast. Here we are. How
Half
long
an hour
are we?
in. That's fine. That's what editing's for. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Personal History of Games. My name is Eric, and I'm your host. And joining me today is Kate Welch.
Hello, I'm Kate Welch.
Hi, how's it going?
So good. How are you?
I'm great.
We're at the Tunnel of Love already.
We are. Got to use this thing. So the reason I was reminded to introduce the
The whole
introduce
podcast, right? Yeah.
because I kind of try to glance at a through line of things. So we're
Yes.
here on the third floor of the Westin in Seattle, Washington.
PAX.
It's kind of like a how did we get here
Yeah.
sort of thing. So
How
we
the
start
hell
with
did
Sam
we
and
get
Max
here?
and educational games.
That's
And
right.
Speaking of fantasy, so I do follow you on Twitter, and I hear Lord of the Rings talk here and there.
Oh yeah.
How do you feel about the movies versus books?
Oh man, I have a really controversial opinion on this. I think that Tolkien was an incredible world builder, and obviously set the tone for fantasy for a whole generation, right? However, I do think that he wasn't a great writer, and so the books, in my opinion, are inferior to the films, and that is, I fully know that no one else agrees with me on this, but the books are like, I remember reading them and being like, dude, there's another song? Are you kidding me? I don't want to read your songs. I want to know the story. And so, and I was an impatient kid, but I fully stand by it. And then the films were so beautiful and very, very iconic to me. And they did such a wonderful job of distilling down everything that was perfect about Lord of the Rings and turning it into a movie. And I've never felt that way before. Like, the books are always superior to the film or the TV series. In my entire experience, everything has always been that, except for Lord of the Rings. I think that Lord of the Rings was extremely well done as a film. Yeah, it's something that I get a lot of shit for from my nerd friends.
That's not the first time I heard that, though. I saw.
Do you know, I recently saw Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings. Have you ever seen this? Okay, bless you. Don't do it to yourself. Okay, so
Is that the cartoon?
yeah. Okay, so Rankin Bass did The Hobbit as a film, and it is beautiful. It's so good. It's this animated Hobbit that is just awesome. The Gollum in that movie is, I started screaming. It's so good. And then Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings, and it is so bizarre, and like half of it is kind of like live action, color treated people wearing like bags or like little slippers, and they're running. It's as though they meant to rotoscope over those scenes, but they ran out of time. And then the movie kind of ends like right in the middle of two towers, and it's just done. Like, they ran out of money. I think they actually did. And I just recently saw this, and it is 2019. So Lord of the Rings movies have been out for almost 20 years, by the way.
Oh, no.
Yeah, welcome to that feeling. So I know that it was the Lord of the Rings visual that everyone experienced until Peter Jackson made Lord of the Rings movies. Until that point, all we had visually was Ralph Bakshi's Lord of the Rings, which is hilariously bad. And the idea that until 2001 or whatever, 2000, when Peter Jackson's movies started coming out, that is the Lord of the Rings that most people associated with as like the visual component. I can't even think about that without laughing hysterically until I pass out. Like, it's so bad, it's so unthinkable, and that is reality. That is what we dealt with as a fandom, and I'm so relieved that I didn't come to it visually until Peter Jackson's adaptations, because they're so beautiful. What are your feelings on this?
I have not read the books. I've watched the movies, though. I like them. I'm not a big fantasy guy. That's my...
Really?
Yeah.
Well, that's what's
I
wrong
don't
with
know.
you. I could tell. Tell her something.
Something off.
Yeah,
thank
see,
you,
they liked
thank
it.
You, thank
They
you.
liked that joke. Yeah, I've always been... Fantasy has been just... I don't remember my first encounter with it. It might have been King's Quest. It might have been a book somewhere in my past, but it's
mouse books.
Yeah, it's like books were a huge, and still are. We were just talking. My fiance and I were talking about this earlier. Like, the things that we still do that we did when we were children, and one of the only things I do is read for pleasure. So I know that like I consumed a lot of books when I was a kid, and it's possible that it was before video games. But King's Quest VI is the earliest memory I have with a fantasy universe that I just became entombed in. So yeah, Lord of the Rings was another big one. But the songs and the Tom Bombadils, and I was just like, this isn't really hanging together for me. But it was also written in a different time. You know, it was written in the 50s, and I think people had very different sensibilities. And also Tolkien was inventing something that didn't exist. And Tolkien, I don't have necessarily a hero worship of him. I think that his work is obviously super important, but I also think that like he was very Eurocentric and had his own racism issues, which I think were really commonplace in the day. So one of the things that I take is like, I love Tolkien, I love Lord of the Rings, but when I look back on those movies from 20 years ago, I'm like, fuck, those are all white people. This is all white people. And that is something that we criticize and we should criticize. So that in our fantasy going forward, and we do this on Dungeons and Dragons a lot, is make sure that we see other people who don't just look like us white people, that we're trying to represent that fantasy includes and should include every other kind of person. And I know that was something that Tolkien really that was something that he espoused, and he didn't maybe even know better. It's possible that these were the common feelings and themes of the day, and that was only 60 years ago, 70 years ago. Thank God we've come so far. I mean, we've got a long way to go.
There's still a long way to go.
Very long way to go. But for the part that I can play in it, it's like I love Lord of the Rings, I love Tolkien, I love fantasy. And I want to make sure that it's not just white people who feel welcome at that table. Sorry, this turned a little bit of a soapbox,
that's fine.
But yeah, there was. So to bring it back to video games, Lord of the Rings had a really hard time making good video games for the longest time, and I think it was Alexa Ray Correa who did a piece on this a few years back on Kotaku. Was it Kotaku? No, it was Polygon. She wrote this incredible piece about the making of Shadow of Mordor, which in my opinion is the best Lord of the Rings game that's ever been made. And she wrote this account after a ton of investigative journalism about the difference between working with the movie property and working with the Tolkien estate on making a video game, and how unbelievably challenging that is. Did you ever read this piece?
No.
Oh, it was the first time. I think it was the first time I was like staggered by a piece of writing. And Alexa Ray Correa, she's so good, but she's a gigantic Lord of the Rings nerd, and so this was a piece that she worked on for a long time. And what I discovered, Alexa Ray Correa, am I right?
Yeah, give it up.
So what I discovered from reading that piece was that one of the issues, and I'm sure this persisted through all of the Lord of the Rings games, was that you could only use material from Lord of the Rings that was not in the films when it came to working with the properties in a video game sense. Wow. So that meant everything from the music to the characters to the locations, everything like those were approved for film use and they were made. And so if they wanted to make a video game, they couldn't do a lot of callbacks, and they did in some of them. I remember like they made Return of the King game, they made a Two Towers game, and all of them had the iconic characters. They were to some level okay, but when it came for some reason Shadow of Mordor, they could only use non-film entities. I'm sure it was something with Warner Brothers, but that makes it really difficult to make a game that people are going to care about. Yeah. And they crushed it. Like they did such. Have you played Shadow of Mordor?
Yes.
They killed it.
Yeah, it was very good.
Such a good game. And like there were no pieces in there. They reference Sauron a couple times. There's in the second game, Shadow of War, there's a Balrog. They have some crossover. But Shadow of Mordor, the story of Celebrimbor and the forging of the ring and all of those things were out of the Silmarillion. None of that came from the films. They had to like dig and find a story in the Silmarillion. The video game players who love the video games, who love the films, who love the Lord of the Rings films, would still find some kind of purchase in. And they just, what a challenge. Mm-hmm. They destroyed it. It was so good. I was going to say, there's so many things to interact with in this game, too, that
yes,
it's only so you can receive the brilliant dialogue that has been written for you.
Yeah, it's all just a vessel for dialogue.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because it's very good dialogue.
It is.
God damn it. I did it again. So I do that, and then I do that. I get the legs back, but we can't go back in the car because I need to do something here. I don't know what. I just came here out of random. So I don't think I know. What were you doing before D&D?
Professionally, yes. I was at Amazon Game Studios for a couple of years, working on a title called Crucible. And then I was also before that, for 4 years, I was at ArenaNet working on Guild Wars 2.
Right.
What happened when you gave it to him?
Nothing. And then...
Oh, okay.
Now I got
it's got to be something in here. Yeah, so I worked... That was my first video game job, was ArenaNet. I got there at the end of 2010. and I worked on Guild Wars 2 pre-ship for about a year and a half, and then post-ship for about 2 years. That was a really cool job for me because in addition to being a big fantasy nerd, I had played a buttload of, and I do mean that in the most literal sense, a buttload of EverQuest and World of Warcraft. So I was a huge MMO player. I was really into the fantasy MMO scene, and Guild Wars 2, when I got wind of it, it was well before it was announced, but the hype train was on the rails, man. It was so crazy. They were promising all these things of like, they've clearly played the games that I've played for the last decade, and they've seen the friction points, and they know how to make a game that is superior or at least is more for players like me. So I was so bought in, and then I saw that they were hiring a web designer, which is what I taught myself to do at the time. So I was like, I gotta try it, I gotta do it, and I somehow managed to weasel into that job. And so and then from there they started to, God, all of these signs are so good. There's a lot going on. So from there we ended up internally converting or attempting to convert our UI system in Guild Wars 2 to be entirely web-based. We developed, while I was on the web dev team, we developed a feature in Guild Wars 2 that was called the Trading Post. And it was essentially the auction house, like World of Warcraft. It's where players can sell, P2P type goods. But the difference is we didn't want to do an auction system. We wanted to do something more like the stock market. So you could place things like buy orders and sell orders for items that were available on the Trading Post or not for your desired price. And then you'd wait. And people could see the existing buy orders and choose to fill them or place their own sell order because all the buy orders were cheapskates.
Right.
And so, we designed this system, and it was entirely web-based because we ideally wanted people to be able to access it outside of the game. We wanted to make apps or websites so that while you're at work, you can pull up your browser and do Trading Post stuff for Guild Wars 2. So we made it that way. And the process of doing that, we realized this is a lot more fun than using Scaleform or whatever. We weren't even advanced. We weren't even using Scaleform. Like Scaleform was too advanced for the engine that we were using. So our UI process, and this is in the weeds a little bit, but I apologize.
That's okay.
Our UI process would be that we would design UI and then we would hand it to a C++ programmer who would then implement the UI. That was it. And that is, it just doesn't work. You can't, it's not fair to ask a C++ programmer to make all of the like little tweaks and transitions and details using only code and a layered Photoshop file from a UI designer who's crossing their fingers hoping for the best. So that was challenging. But because the web-based UI system, all the web designers knew how to use HTML and CSS, and so we were like, we can build this ourselves. We don't have to have a C++ programmer do it. Like, we can not only design it, but we can actually implement it. And so we were pushing really, really hard for web-based UI, and that's how I got moved into being a UI designer on Guild Wars 2. And then that was kind of where my game dev career took off, and I went to Amazon Game Studios to become their lead UI designer on Crucible. I got hired by Kim Swift over there, which was a dream come true because Portal was one of my favorite games, and I remember applying for this job at Amazon Game Studios and seeing that Kim was going to be my phone interviewer, and I was like, oh my God. And I have this memory of her phone screen when she calls me and it's Kim Swift on the line, and I was like, I have to let you know, I'm a really big fan. And she was like, well, I'm just a person, just a normal person. I was like, oh man, I made her feel weird. I'm not gonna get this job. But I did, and she was my manager for a good long while over there. And yeah, it was that was a very different experience because Crucible was a battle royale game, and I had never worked on a shooter of any kind. I played a lot of Overwatch at the time, right when I started working on Crucible. I think a couple months later, Overwatch went into beta, and so I was like heavy in the Overwatch beta. It was so good, and I was like, our shooting has to feel this good, and so that was kind of where I got my feet wet when it came to shooters, was Overwatch, and I'd never really been into it before. This cat, yes. Anyway, yeah, so then Then I started on Acquisitions Incorporated as a player on the live stream, and I just fell really hard and fast in love with Dungeons and Dragons because I had never played it before. I mean, I played 3.5. I hadn't played 5th edition, but I had never played a game of D&D that was quite like that. That felt like everybody was kind of working something out at the table and becoming a better person and forging these bonds and friendships. Like one of the people at my table is this guy, Ryan Hartman. I don't think he and I would ever have found a reason to be friends. Like he's this like brash, kind of like standoffish guy, doesn't say a lot about his emotions, and I'm really mushy and I like to make, to be very close to my friends. He and I probably would never have gotten particularly close, but because my character is close to his character, he and I are close as people. And I don't know of any other interaction in the world. Maybe actors have this on sets, when they're playing their characters, they probably have that kind of bond, but most of us don't get that. We can get it, any of us, we can have that with Dungeons and Dragons. And so the amount of empathy that I felt and how I saw Dungeons and Dragons, although in a much smaller playing field from video games, which, can be billions of people, Dungeons and Dragons is in the millions rather than the billions. And I realized that was kind of where I wanted to make my impact, was in the space of millions of millions of people who want to have a very intimate, special, personalized experience with something, to let themselves be vulnerable in a way that video games don't require you to be. And in fact, I think that video games in some ways can be desensitizing, and you're an anonymous person online with a bunch of other anonymous people, and you're all treating each other like trash. If you spend enough time in that environment, you might start to confuse that for the way that humans really behave with each other. But Dungeons and Dragons, if you're an asshole, nobody's going to ask you to play Dungeons and Dragons again. So it's like self-selecting social system.
Yeah.
And there was something very special about that. So anyway, that's how I transitioned over from video games to tabletop, was that.
Yeah, that's very cool.
Oh boy, we're back at the Conan tragedy.
I've done a big circle. Because I want to give a plug to someone else, because I just filmed for them, the Game to Grow guys.
Yes, the Adams.
Yes,
I love those guys.
I filmed their panels at PAX.
Yeah.
Yes, and they always, all their stories are wonderful, and then everything they talk about at D&D. So gametogrow.org to find out more about using D&D for positive improvement of humans with social things they need to work out.
Yeah, and they are both licensed therapists, I believe,
Yes.
and they use it regularly in their own therapy with their patients.
Yes.
There's Dr. B, Rafael Bacamezzo, is also involved with, he's involved with Game to Grow a little bit, and primarily the org Take This. And I know that he uses D&D constantly in his own private practice therapy stuff. There's something mechanically, like in the mental zone of a human being that thrives on something like D&D. And I have a lot of unscientific theories about why that is, but I think it has to do with, again, that vulnerability, the act of creating something collaboratively that wasn't there before,
Yes.
that causes synapses to fire in your brain that wouldn't normally, but that I think are essential to a healthy human mind. Like the act of collaborative storytelling is something that I think that we must have evolved to do. There's a type of neuron that I just learned about called the mirror neuron. And this is, and I'm probably going to misquote the science on this, but from my understanding, what this is it's the Homo sapien ability to watch another member of our species or any species have an encounter with something. Let's say you see someone run into a cactus and they're like, ow. We have the ability to see that happen and understand I shouldn't run into that cactus. Mm-hmm. It is as though that thing happened to us. We are able to learn that lesson by watching. And so my theory, that is, again, completely ungrounded scientifically, is that we have that same reaction to stories. And that when we hear a story, a fable, that's why fables have persisted in our time, is that these are supposed to be lessons that we're learning about ourselves. And I think that the reason they stick is because there's something in our brain that's like, yes, this is a lesson that someone else learned, and in order to preserve myself, I am going to learn that lesson by having watched it, and therefore I don't need to experience the pain of that lesson. Like, I just know it. So stories are something that we pay more attention to because there's always an opportunity to learn something about humanity from them. And so to my mind, in my experience, it's that, and then ramped up, like turned up to 11 when you're the one collaboratively creating that story with other people. I remember things in D&D games that I don't remember what was happening in my real life at the time. I remember the D&D game vividly because I was creating something with people that would not have existed if not for us, that only we knew about. And it was this story, and we all cared about it. And the validation that came from a group of people caring about my story, about our story. I don't know. It seems to be positive, like a truly positive gaming experience. And in that way, it is so unique. So I kind of wanted to devote my energy to it.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. That seems like a good place to wrap it up.
Yeah, let's do it.
Do you have anything to promote? D&D.
Yes.
You've never heard of it?
Yeah, I've never heard of Dungeons & Dragons. Do give it a try. I am on Acquisitions Incorporated, the C Team. God, that's a mouthful. Every Wednesday from 4 to 7 p.m. Pacific, and we would love it if you tuned in. And watch our D&D stuff. Play some Dungeons & Dragons. If you ever need advice, you can hit me up on Twitter. I'm at Kate Welch. There's Kate Welch with 4 H's at the end, and I would love to talk D&D with you.
Was Kate Welch with 3 H's taken?
Yes, and 2 H's and 1 H. Yes.
Oh no.
I don't know. Those poor women must get a lot of D&D questions.
Yeah, I have one question for you.
Yeah.
I'm asking all the season 1 people. Personal history of games, PHOG. I want to abbreviate it.
Fog.
Do I want FOG or do I want PHOG? Because personal is in brackets, so it is up by itself. So
P-hog. I think P brackets hog is very good. That's very strong.
Cool.
Yeah. P-hog's awesome.
Boom.
Boom.
Thank you.
That was
Thank you so much for being on.
Of course. Thank you.
And goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
You can hear more of the personal history of games on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. If you enjoyed this episode and want to help us out, please leave us a rating and review. For updates, you can follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at PHOGPod, or check out our website at personalhog.com. The show is hosted and produced by Eric Kanius, executive produced by Robin Lands. Do We Like is brought to you by Beamed Media, a Canadian podcast network.
I think I stopped PC gaming entirely just because my PC was a piece of shit. And I've been console gaming in the rare moments that I have to be a video game player these days. But my Steam library had like 800 games in it or something. It's funny, like there's a value proposition that Steam wants to, like they want to give you access to everything. But when you view video games in a list like this, you don't really appreciate the years and years and years that it took to make something like Monaco or Papers, Please. Like you're just like, it's a text in a list. And for me, that ended up psychologically like devaluing the list. Yeah. Do you have this problem? I realized I had to look at it in that form. And yeah, this is the only way I could give any kind of like sense of maybe but they're all like the promo images for these games, right? And that's the only way I felt comfortable looking at them anymore.
No, it makes them feel more.
It makes them feel
real.
Like a thing,
yeah,
right? Like I'm looking
real.
at boxes on a shelf.
Exactly.
How old are you?
29.
Okay, I'm 34. So I've got 5 years on you of like shopping at stores for games when I was a kid. Do you?
I did.
Once upon a time.
I understand the concept of stores.
Dude, that's 100% going to be an artifact of the past within our lifetimes.
It will be.